McCall, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, great. Hi, Renee. Hi, Ron. I presume Tim's behind that flag someplace.
That's right.
Morning, Madeline. Morning, Ron.
Morning.
I'm just getting others in here, so bear with me, Tim. Don't get started without me.
We wouldn't think of it. And McCall, yes to your text.
Thank you. Let me get. Hi, Lisa.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Good. Happy Monday.
Yeah.
Morning, Lisa. This is Renee.
Good morning, Renee.
Let me get our ex officios in. Oh, the superintendent go. There we go.
Is Jane joining us, McCall?
Jane is on.
Oh, good.
Morning, Jane. It's Renee.
She's on, but she's not in the group. She's listening.
And where's our vice
Oh,
chair?
good morning.
I am looking for her. I don't see her on yet. Oh, here she is. Mr. Chair, let's just give it 1 minute.
Yep,
Well,
she just popped up.
Perfect.
Okay, are you ready, McCall?
I'm ready.
Okay. We'll call this meeting to order. It's a special board meeting of the Montana Board of Public Education. Today is March 25th, 2024. The time is 11:02 a.m. and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
McCall, will you please call the roll?
Yes, I will, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to remind folks too that we are streaming to YouTube today. Just wanted to make sure you knew that. I'll take roll call now. Chair Tharp.
Here.
Vice Chair Hedelin.
Here.
Lisa Schmidt.
Here.
Dr. Ron Slinger.
Here.
Madeline Quinlan.
Here.
I know Jane Hammond is on. Renee Rasmussen.
Here.
Student Rep Gavin Mao. I didn't see him on today. I hope he's in school. Superintendent Arnson's office.
He's on vacation is where he is.
Superintendent Arnson's office.
Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner Christian's office.
Here, thank you.
And Governor Gianforte's office.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right, thank you. Board of Public Education encourages the public to participate in board discussions. Persons who wish to participate should use the chat feature to contact McCall and ask. They need to identify themselves and then ask to be heard. Anyone wishing to participate will be recognized in keeping with normal board parliamentary procedure. We discourage public comment on personnel matters and ask that you discuss these issues in private with me as board chair. Montana Board of Public Education is a professional development unit provider. Attending a Board of Public Education meeting may qualify you to receive professional development units, and contact McCall for information about that. I'd like to welcome any visitors that might be joining us. And given the constraints of Zoom, I don't believe we'll go through and invite anybody to present themselves. They will certainly have that option during public comment in a bit. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adopt our agenda.
So moved.
So moved.
Got a motion from Madeline, a second from Renee. Any discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor of adopting the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I did see a hand go up. We'll have to give
Oh.
a little bit more wait time for that today. So
Oh,
I'm going to
sure.
let Mr. Chip Lindelof talk before we consider that a motion. Thank you.
Okay.
Chip, you should be able to speak now.
I apologize. I wasn't raising my hand for the agenda, but for the public comment. Did I make a
Oh.
mistake?
Yes, we'll do public comment at the end of our meeting today. We don't have
Thank
two
you.
today, just given the agenda. Thank you so much.
Very sorry.
No
Thanks.
problem. Thanks, Chip.
Thank you.
All right. This brings us to our item number 1, action. In order for any new or revised education policies to be implemented by the state of Montana, there's 4 entities that have to work together to affect change. All 4 of these have their specific duties and responsibilities found not only in Montana code, but also in our Constitution. Those 4 entities are the legislature, the governor's office, the Office of Public Instruction, and the Board of Public Education. And we all need to be on the same page working together for students in Montana. The 68th regular session of the Montana legislature passed more education policy changes that I've seen in over 30 years of work in education. Largest of which was given directly to the Board of Public Ed for implementation. Mix in historic changes in accreditation and licensure, and the Board of Public Ed has had more work in the past 2 years than ever before. However, as it has been widely reported, there have been numerous roadblocks and obstacles to legislation being fully implemented as intended, all seemingly being caused by Office of Public Instruction's interpretation of these new laws. The TEACH Act, House Bill 143 from the 67th legislative session, has caused some obstacles for schools to get funding for their teachers, as some have been reported they missed a deadline and now will not receive their money. Number 2, House Bill 338 from this last session seeks to clarify Indian Ed for All provisions and increase accountability measures, but has been interpreted in a way that forces schools to go back in time to a period prior to this bill being passed in order to qualify for future funding. And then we have understanding that the OPI has told schools repeatedly that they can appeal that reduction in their allocation to the board, something that is not in the law. But again, OPI is interpreting this law to require schools to go back in time, and as such, schools may lose out on funding. Number 3, while not directly involving the Board of Public Ed, implementation of House Bill 367 and House Bill 949 in creating a statewide data system useful for K-12, higher education, and the Department of Labor and Industry has faced unfortunate delays. And finally, number 4, our issue today, the creation of new public charter schools as directed by the Montana legislature and given to the Montana Board of Public Education to implement. House Bill 549, sponsored by a longtime educator in Montana, Representative Dr. Fred Anderson, describes in great detail the process, the evaluative criteria, and procedures that the board was to follow to consider approving these charters. Ultimately, the board approved a total of 19, 18 of which are scheduled to begin operations on July 1st. Every attorney that we've consulted, experts in education law, in private practice, representing various school entities, and even the legislative committees that heard this bill, as well as all the other prior ones, have been in consistent agreement with what the bill calls to happen and has clarified legislative intent. The only dissenting opinion on these has come from the Office of Public Instruction, which is expecting a separate and additional process to be used for opening these charter schools, a process for regular schools, not these charters. And the difficulty this creates is not only in time and effort from these schools, but creates a scenario where county commissioners could vote against the opening of these public charters and therefore scuttling the entire process. If the legislature had wanted a process to give the counties veto power over the local school board and the Board of Public Education in opening these charter schools, they would have done so. Correspondence from the state superintendent requests that the board establish a separate and parallel pathway for opening these schools. Yet legal counsel from everyone except the Office of Public Instruction is in agreement that House Bill 549 has already created this parallel process, which has been carried out, and that the school should be declared open effective July 1, which is how we've ended up at this point today. And I find this to be a highly distasteful situation where one constitutional body is forced to request that another constitutional body carry out duties as prescribed. We're facing these issues with implementation of Indian Ed for All compliance. Schools may have already lost funding on the Teach Act and unnecessary delays in creation of the statewide database. But the issue before us today is the most significant, and that the possible delay of opening these 19 innovative charter schools in the state of Montana. Locally elected school boards of trustees, their administrative teams, and members of the public work tirelessly to get these rolling. And it is the obligation of the Board of Public Education and the Office of Public Instruction to comply with legislative intent. It is my hope and prayer that approval of this formal letter from the Board of Public Education to the State Superintendent of Public Instruction will get this process moving so that these innovative programs designed to benefit the students of Montana may open on time as expected on July 1st. Therefore, fellow board members, I present the attached letter as found in your board packet and would like to request a motion for approval to put this letter on the table for discussion.
So moved.
There's a motion from Madeline. Is there a second?
I believe, oh, go ahead.
And there's a second from Lisa. Board member discussion.
Mr. Chair, I see that Mr. Klopmeyer has his hand raised.
Governor's office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You brought up a lot of issues with legislation implementation that the governor's office has been engaged with and will continue to do so. But specifically as it relates to the public charter schools and House Bill 549, as I've said in the last several meetings, the governor appreciates the extensive amount of time and energy that the board has put into reviewing and approving these public charter schools as outlined in House Bill 549. The lieutenant governor has reviewed the board's position in this matter and agrees with the board's legal interpretation as outlined in this letter. The board's position is further supported by legal opinions from the legislature, school associations, as well as the expressed legislative intent of those that worked on the bill. The board has authorized these public charter schools as the law requires, and it's time for school codes to be assigned to these public charters and to begin incorporating funding for them for fiscal year 2025. These public charter schools will expand educational opportunities for Montana students, and the governor wants to see them opened without delay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Klopmeyer. Other board members.
Mr. Chair.
Member Quinlan.
Thank you. I support this motion, and I think that it's clear in the section of the House Bill 549, Section 6, which is a new section, and it talks about the board establishing reasonable pre-opening requirements. I believe the board has done that, identified these requirements in the contracts, and so we have fulfilled our duties in that regard, that that the authorization of these schools implies the opening of these schools, and in addition to the direct language that's in the law. So I support the motion.
Thank you, Madeline. Other board members. Board member Rasmussen.
I spent quite a little bit of time going over this. At first blush, I believe that Superintendent Arntzen was correct, and in needing to go through a process. But my problem is this: as I go through in the bill, as I go through Section 5, it talks about the application process that the board approves would include the grades to be served, the planned enrollment, the significant community support, the local school boards signing off on those, all things that are listed in the opening of a school, a regular school. in sections 502, 503, 504. So because those are duplicated in the charter school section of the law of chapter 6, chapter 20-6, I don't believe that the charter schools fall under the opening of a school. Charter schools falls under its separate section, the opening of a charter school. If it did not, none of those things would have been listed for the applicant to complete as they applied to be a charter school. Those are duplicates of what is in the other sections for opening of a school. So my contention is, after further study and a lot of circling and going back and forth, that charter schools are not schools to be opened under the Board of Public, or under the Office of Public Instruction. They are their own entity, and the program for them opening has been prescribed by law.
Thank you, Renee. Other board members? Vice Chair Hedlund.
One of the things that I looked into on this as well, I believe Member Rasmussen had kind of a similar question, was the previously established charter school, public charter schools like Bridger, what process they went through, and it doesn't appear that they went through the opening process as being described. So I found that information good to know, because I was wondering about past precedent.
Thank you. Other board member comment? Any other board member comment? Any public comment? McCall, I believe we have the bill sponsor.
Representative Fred Anderson, I will promote now. Representative Anderson, you should be able to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Sure
go ahead,
can.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as the sponsor of House Bill 549, we spent an awful lot of time with legal counsel going through this in regard to many facets of make sure it was constitutional and looking at the opening. And we had no intention of having a third party involved in the opening of the charter schools. In fact, I think it's kind of an interesting aside. Great Falls built 2 new elementary schools, one which opened in 2018, Giant Springs School, which was actually a school, not a charter. Longfellow in 2020. In talking to the county commissioners, they had no input or no part into that. The opening of the school went through as prescribed in law, but the county commissioners were not inserted into that process in any way, shape, or form. And I guess one of the things that's a little disappointing to me, I know Superintendent Arntzen has advocated school choice since having been elected. And so seeing this now as a detour or a roadblock is disappointing. I've had calls from a number of schools who applied in good faith, had their applications approved by the state board, and are anxious to open their schools in all but one in July of 24. And now they're frustrated by this additional process and roadblock. And so my hope is that consensus can be reached on this, and that these charters can go forward as intended to provide the additional choice and empower students to move forward in ways that they may not have been able to prior to the passage of this bill, Mr. Chair and board members.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Other public
Mr.
comment?
Chair. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do see Chip Lindenlaub has his hand up now.
Okay. Mr. Lindenlaub.
Thank you, Dr. Tharp and members of the board, and Dr. Anderson, Representative Anderson. I had a nice long letter here written for you, but I just want to comment and say No disrespect intended, but I disagree. The law has to be upheld as written. Legislative intent is not how we judge laws, it's what's written in the law. I recently read a book by Justice Scalia, and I'm sure he's chuckling from his grave now, listening to legislators say that, well, what we intended to write was this. And he would say, but that's not what you wrote. We judge the law on what is written in the law. As a proponent of 562, the Community Choice Schools Act, and an opponent of 549, I attended every hearing, every committee hearing, I virtually or in person. And I also watched the debate on the floor in the House and the Senate. At no time did either Dr. Anderson or any of the supporters of 549 intend to violate Title 20, except for as was specifically excluded in the language of the bill. When I read the bill, again, no disrespect intended, 11C states, except as provided in sections 1 through 14 in the public charter schools charter contract, a charter school is subject to the provision of Title 20 and any state or local rule, regulation, policy, or procedure relating to non-charter public schools within the located school district. Additionally, if you read section 6, subparagraph 6, it states the Board of Public Education must ensure that each school meets all building, health, safety, insurance, and other legal requirements for school opening. As OPI Council Stutz testified before the Education Budget Interim Committee, nowhere in 549 is there an exemption for Title 20 school opening procedures. Unfortunately, and it is unfortunate because I support school choice also, but I think a mistake was made when the bill was drafted, and I humbly ask, how will you hold these schools accountable if you allow them to deviate from the law on the day that they are founded? I think that's a big mistake. I think it would be a better example to, correct the problem the best you can, maybe scramble to comply with the Title 20 language for opening schools, and then allow the schools that can do that to open. I think that would set a great example, and I would urge you to withdraw this letter. And I think that would show that you have character and integrity, and that you're holding the legislators who made a mistake when they drafted this bill accountable. And that would be a great example for students to be taught in a future civics class. Thank you very much for your time. You've been very generous. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Lindenlaub. Other public comment?
Mr. Chair, I see Representative David Beatty's hand up. Oh, hold tight there. There we go.
Representative Beatty.
Okay, Chairman Tharp, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chairman Tharp, and I thank the Board of Public Education for taking this matter up. I must respectfully disagree with the previous commenter, a person who I know and respect, with respect not only to House Bill 549, but to the other issues that were raised during your opening on this. The fact of the matter is, my legislative oversight committee sought legal counsel, not just from legislative counsel, but from recognized expert outside of the legislature, and in one instance from counsel within the Department of Administration. And in each and every case on substantive, in terms of the substantive interpretation of the law, they came down on the side or the position that you have taken as the position that we were persuaded to take based upon the testimony we heard. We simply do not believe that the legal counsel for the Office of Public Instruction has this right, and should the Board of Public Education approve this particular letter, I think that you will actually be doing your duty and setting a great example for folks across the state. So I want to reiterate our findings after lengthy hearings on this and a consultation with legal counsel because of the serious nature of the issue at hand leads us to agree both with the Board of Public Education and with the governor on this matter. And we've communicated our disagreement, as you well know, with the Superintendent of Public Instruction. We have not been persuasive. I hope that you have better luck. Thank you, Chairman Tharp.
Thank you, Representative Beatty. Superintendent Arntzen.
Thank you, Chairman Tharp and board members and all that are in attendance. I have with me another legal counsel. You've met Mr. Stutz, and now we have Mr. Wooten. But I'll be doing just a little bit of the speaking. I so appreciate that we're all on the same page, that we are putting our students first. We want to make sure that parents have an opportunity to really reflect what students can do. And it is also about accountability. And I think that is where we are at this point. So we can agree that the intent of this is for parents and children, but we need to also look at what the letters in the law and what the words do indeed state. So I don't know, Dr. Tharp, if it was passed to you, the letter that came from my office and from me specifically last Friday. Has that been in the rest of the board's hands?
Yes, it was distributed to all the board members.
Well, I believe we can all come to an understanding that we don't want to be dilatory. We don't want to do anything that is going to challenge the request. We want to have this done in a timely manner. We want to make sure that letter of the law is followed, that all that are in awareness of this, that it's equally distributed, that there is not any doubt by any manner. And that is why in my letter that I had asked for a policy to an extent what I believe was not waived in the law and was not written into the law. If you would like to, as a board, go ahead and create a policy or create a rule that would give consistency to all that would like to embark on a public charter. I believe public charters are public schools, and that way then all of Title 20 would be attributed both in opportunity and given consistency across our state. That is what I would like to offer, and we'd be more than happy to work with you within that. When that policy or rule comes forward, not only would it be for the schools to understand, but it would also be for our great staff here at the Office of Public Instruction. I don't know if the committee would like to take, or the board would like to take that up into any understanding, but I believe that right there points to us working together, us working toward something that is so new to our state, but also reflects opportunity, innovation for public education. And so with that, Dr. Tharp, I would hope that you would take under consideration building a policy or a rule that might heal the divide of where the bill left off. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Arntzen. Other public comment?
I don't see any other hand raised, Mr. Chair.
Okay. No one, the delays of Zoom.
Oh, sorry. Board Member Rasmussen has her hand up.
Okay. Board Member Rasmussen.
Hi. Again, I spent a lot of time this weekend looking at Superintendent Arntzen's letter and looking at the bill, which I have, and looking at 20-6, the 500 section. And I came back to one line in the bill, which is really handy because it speaks exactly to the legislature's intent. Section 2, number 3 says, it is the legislature's intent, luckily they put it in there for us, to create innovative and high-performing public charter schools under the general supervision of the Board of Public Ed and under the supervision and control of the trustees of the governing board, et cetera, et cetera. I have a couple of things to say here. Number one, thank you to the legislature for all the extra work we had. It was a lot, but we take our responsibility seriously. It is their intent that the supervision be under the Board of Public Education. And in fact, one of the other sections that someone mentioned says that it's the section 8, talks about, and I didn't underline it, talks about our responsibility to set criteria for the opening of the school and the background, including things like safety of the building, et cetera, et cetera. That's in the section assigned to the Board of Public Education. So I believe the legislature in those two sections was very clear about the responsibility and whose responsibility it was to open these public schools. What bothers me tremendously is if all other charter schools in the past on their opening had been subject to this same process. I would think that that would be something that would need to be considered. But since they weren't, I do not see how it is relevant. This is a charter school. Charter schools are under the subject of the Board of Public Ed according to law.
Thank you, Renee. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. McCall, let us do this by a roll call vote so that there's no confusion regarding multiple people speaking at once.
Okay, Dr. Tharp.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hedelin? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
Aye.
Lisa Schmidt?
Aye.
Dr. Slinger?
Aye.
Madeline Quinlan?
Aye.
Renee Rasmussen?
Aye.
I believe that is it. Unanimous vote.
Motion carries. And McCall, please fix my electronic signature to the letter and distribute that at your earliest convenience. That concludes our agenda items. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I thank you all for your time and your attention, and we appreciate everybody's service to the students of Montana. We'll declare this meeting